I am coming at you because I am feeling really compelled to kind of switch up my platform and my role in this movement that we're seeing right now. If you've been friends with me any length of time and you actually read my posts, then you know that activism is something that is just really near and dear to my heart. My parents raised me, showing me an example of what taking real action meant. They had me riding along with them in my little red wagon since I was in diapers, and I'm so grateful for their influence and their example in my life. And I definitely want to carry on that example and that legacy to try to bring about change in our country. And so I have been really reflecting on maybe what my role could be. I'm active in posting and sharing information, educational resources, things like that. But I'm also a teacher, and communicating and educating is something that is also near and dear to my heart. And this is where I really feel like I'm being led to switch my platform, is to bring more types of educational resources and put them just out there for people to have. And I'm going to start doing that with this. And where I want to start is specifically with maybe a message to my white community. We have a responsibility to educate ourselves and educate each other within our white community about systemic racism and our role in it. It's not on the members of those being oppressed to educate us about what we're doing to them. It's on us to educate ourselves to help be the change we want to see. So there's 3 things that have been on my heart that I want to talk to y'all about. So number 1 thing that's been on my heart is that we have to allow ourselves to be uncomfortable. In fact, for change to happen, it's going to be necessary for us to feel uncomfortable. Because what we're looking at is a system that values white lives more than black lives. So when we're looking at all of this and we are trying to understand it and trying to look at our place in it and our role and maybe the things we do that we don't mean, like our intent isn't there, but intentions don't matter much, and they don't matter as much as the effect, right? So I think we've all probably seen that video by now that goes around that it's like when you drop an egg and it breaks, you can't put it back together, and that's kind of how sorries are or intent is. Kind of think of that. So we have to, and we will feel uncomfortable. And it's necessary and it's okay. So most of the times when we grow as human beings, it requires a level of uncomfortableness because we're looking at things about ourselves that we don't really want to look at. So a lot of times I hear like, I just don't even know where to start. Like, I want to learn, I want to do better, but like there's just so much to unpack. Like, where do I start? I'm going to tell you where to start. I honestly think this book should be required reading for everyone, okay? Like, I'm not even lying. You need to order this. This book, White Fragility, by Robin DiAngelo. She's a sociologist. So get on Amazon, click buy. I know you all buy things from Amazon. White Fragility. I actually loaned out my copy, so I ordered a new one because it's that easy. You just go on Amazon and buy it. And I'm going to be rereading this because, like I said, it's that good of a book. No matter how long you've been doing activism or whatever, this is always going to be applicable in every white person's life. So I'm going to be reading this. Please order it, read it with an open heart, read it with a willingness to be shown where you've been wrong and where you need to grow. If you want to discuss it, or anything, feel free to message me. I am more than willing to discuss it with you because we need to educate ourselves. We need to be the change we want to see. So please order that book. Everybody should read it. But like I said, it's going to make you uncomfortable, and it should, because that's where growth comes from. Don't be afraid of being uncomfortable. That's how we grow. All right, the second thing that's been on my heart to share is that we need to get out of our head that there's an end place for us in this. we're never going to arrive to a place where we can stop learning. So like I said, since I don't have my original copy, I reordered it. There's never going to be a point in my life that I can't read this book and learn from it. In fact, every time I read this book, I'm going to learn something different because of where I'm at and the experiences I have right then in my life. And so we need to get it out of our head that, like, we can arrive at this place where we're never going to be racist, or we're never going to have prejudice, or like something like that. That's not possible. And this wonderful Instagram user made these amazing info graphs. The Instagram account is at Black and Embodied. So if you're on Instagram, please go to at Black and Embodied. Please like these, follow her. Basically what she came up with are these like 7 circles of whiteness. And they're genius. They're so genius. And they bring so much clarity to kind of the phases we can go through as like white people trying to seek to be better allies. And it's definitely not like a straight progression. It's not like, okay, I start in circle 1 and then I go in circle 2, and I'm pretty sure that's why she didn't call them phases, right? Because it's not just like, you know, up and then I'm at 7 and then I'm done because I met the goal. Like, that's not how they work. You can be in multiple circles at one time. You could be in circle 7, which is the ideal, and then you can digress. So they're not definitives, and they're not things that you're only in one at one time. So like, I'll give you an example for me personally. So like, you know, social justice and activism is super important to me. So intentionally, I try to keep up with educating myself and self-reflection and things like that. So I try to embody the characteristics of Circle 7, the lifelong student. And I'd like to think that I'm pretty successful at it the majority of the time. However, I had a communication with someone in the past week, and it really didn't sit right with me. The way I communicated was not coming off in a way that I liked, and I didn't know why. So I had 2 choices, really. I could have just chalked it up to a miscommunication. Like, you know what? Obviously, we miscommunicated. That person, they just didn't get what I meant. And I know who I am. My community knows who I am. I know I'm not that way, so whatever. I could have chosen to take that attitude. And that's the default of what we want to do, because that's comfortable. We don't have to think about ourselves when we do that. We don't have to reflect on what we're doing. But it nagged at me. I didn't like it. Okay? Couldn't think about anything else. Ooh, it's one of those things. And what that means is I was being convicted. My heart was telling me that I needed to learn and grow. I need to learn from this and grow. And so that's what I chose to do. I chose to reflect. I chose to learn. And I chose to really get at the root of where my miscommunication came from where what I said caused the reaction. And what I found is that I had degressed from Circle 7. I wasn't a lifelong learner at that point in time. I had digressed to a Circle 6, the do-gooder, with a little bit of Circle 4, the needy ally, thrown in there. And I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. And if I hadn't taken that cue, that conviction, that uncomfortableness, and ran with it and learned why, I wouldn't have known that I had degressed. And my behavior would have gotten worse. So we got to let ourselves be uncomfortable, and we got to take that as that's an opportunity to grow. We got to realize we're never going to arrive. We can do lots of good in this world, but we also are never going to be perfect. And again, that's okay, but we have to recognize it, and we have to continue to grow. The last thing that's been on my heart to share is that we need to fight the urge to feel defensive about things. I think the classic example of this was when the Black Lives Matter movement first started. I can't tell you how often I heard all lives matter, or even blue lives matter, or things like that. And while good intentioned, it was a perpetuation of white privilege and a perpetuation of systemic racism. Because saying Black Lives Matter is never saying that anybody else's lives do not matter. What it's bringing awareness to is that in our country that's full of systemic racism, our systems place white lives above black lives. And I think the reason why people reacted this way with, well, all lives matter and, things like that, is because our default setting is to become defensive about things and to take things personally. And I do that too. We all do. I think it's just a human response. It's a human thing to do. But we really have to fight against that if we want to stop systemic racism and if we want to change this injustice that is perpetuated. Because we have to realize this is not about us as individuals. And every time we make it about individuals and us, it hurts the movement towards justice. For me, this is again showing up. Right now, you might be hearing things like all cops are bad cops or no cop is a good cop. And, automatically our human response is, well, wait a second, my brother's a cop or my mom's a cop or, whoever. I have a friend who's a cop and they are excellent and wonderful people. I don't doubt that you do. There are wonderful and excellent individuals who are cops, guaranteed. But that's not what that saying is talking about. And when we respond with this defensiveness and this, I can't believe you're calling, all cops bad. Well, that's not what that means. What it means is that under this system that we have, our system prevents good policing. So it's not about individuals. It's about a system that is unjust, that is racist and corrupt. And so the system doesn't allow for good cops. So it says nothing about an individual. It says nothing about your brother who's a cop, your mom, your friend, whoever. It's not about individuals. And so we have to fight against this natural reaction to defend ourselves or the people we love. And that's hard. It really is. I understand that. It is hard. Like I said, I'm a human. I understand that so much. But for progress to be made, again, we got to make ourselves, it's uncomfortable to confront that. But it's necessary if we really want to end this systemic racism. And I encourage you, when you hear things like this that make you uncomfortable, or automatically like, wait a second, no, and want to be defensive, maybe take a breath before I go off, because believe me, I want to protect my friends and people I love too. Okay? But before that, maybe we should seek understanding. And let me try to clarify a little bit what that means. So again, it's not about an individual, it's about a system. And really all you got to do is open your eyes to the evidence that's been provided for years about the police system in America. Not about police officers, but a police system. And it's obvious that the police system is unjust. And so this has never been more clear than in George Floyd's case. You see an officer murder George Floyd, murder him. He makes the conscious decision to take the man's life. And you see 3 other cops let him do it. They have 9 minutes to act before the man dies. And they don't feel compelled to do it. They don't feel compelled to act. And that's why the system doesn't allow for good policing. Because if the system was about good policing, every one of those other officers would have been compelled to act. They would have felt compelled to not only stop what was happening, but they would have been compelled to act and arrest him for attempted murder, for breaking the law. But they didn't. And that happens every day. This incident, it was filmed. You know how many incidents aren't filmed, where there's no witnesses? What are the statistics on cops who stand up to other cops, who arrest other cops for breaking the law? That's what it means when there's no good cops or no cop's a good cop. It's not about individuals. It's about a system. The system doesn't allow for good policing. Doesn't matter how good a person is. The system is bad. Another example, in Buffalo, the Buffalo Emergency Response Unit was clearing the streets of peaceful protesters exercising their constitutional rights to protest. And two of the officers pushed this elderly gentleman, pushed him. And as a consequence of their unlawful action, he fell on the concrete because they pushed him, not because he tripped. They're trying to say he tripped. No, there's video evidence that they pushed him. He fell backwards, hit his head on the concrete, and it split his skull open. So obviously, there has to be consequences because these are unlawful actions. Now let me tell you how this shows bad policing. There were tons of other officers there. Not one of them felt compelled to step in, to recognize the unlawful actions, to arrest them for the unlawful actions, or to do anything about it. In fact, none of them even checked on him. None of them. They didn't care. Watch the video if you don't believe me. Because the action was that both officers were suspended while they're investigating this event, all 57 members of the emergency response unit resigned in protest because those officers are being investigated and suspended because of their unlawful actions. And all 57 members of that team, while they resign that unit, they still are out on the streets with a badge and a gun in their police force. The system doesn't allow for good policing. Does it compel action against police officers? So again, I know that the default is to be defensive. That's my default, probably your default, probably all of our defaults. But we really got to check ourselves. And we got to remember, this is not about us. It's not about individuals. It's about a system. We got to be uncomfortable because that leads to growth. We got to recognize that we're always going to be learning. We're a lifelong learner. And we got to remember, check our defensiveness. Look at what something truly means.